The parable of moth and the flame is one of the deepest symbols in Sufi spirituality. It is often attributed to the teachings of Fariduddin Attar and beautifully echoed by Jalaluddin Rumi. A gathering of moths wanted to understand the mystery of fire. The first moth flew close to a candle. It felt the warmth from a distance and returned. I know what fire is, it declared. The second moth flew nearer. Its wings got burnt by the flame. It returned in pain. I know fire better than anyone. Finally, a third moth flew straight into the flame. It was completely consumed. Nothing remained of it except the flame itself. The wise elder then said, "Only this moth truly knew the fire." What does this mean? The moth represents the human soul. The flame represents God, the divine reality, or the ultimate truth. The three moths symbolize three stages of spiritual understanding. Stage 1 is intellectual knowledge, stage 2 is experiential knowledge, stage 3 is union through self surrender. The first stage, intellectual knowledge. The first moth merely observed the fire. This is like someone who reads many scriptures, attends lectures, and discusses spirituality. They understand concepts, but only from the outside. They know about God. Second stage is experiential knowledge. The second moth came close enough to be burnt. This represents the sincere seeker who begins meditation, prayer, remembrance of God, service, or self discipline. Spiritual practice starts changing them. They experience moments of peace, love, and transformation. They have experienced something of God. Stage 3, union through self surrender. The third moth entered the flame completely. This does not mean physical death. It symbolizes the disappearance of the false self, the ego that says, "I am separate." The moth loses nothing real. Rather, what disappears is the illusion of separateness. In Sufi language, this is often called fana, the passing away of the ego, followed by bakha, abiding in God. At this point, the seeker no longer says, "I know God." Instead, only God remains. Why was the moth consumed? The flame did not destroy the moth's true essence. It destroyed only its separate identity. A helpful analogy is a drop of water falling into the ocean. The drop seems to disappear. Has it died? The answer is no. It has become one with the vast ocean. Likewise, the individual ego dissolves into the awareness of the divine. This insight appears across spiritual traditions. In Advaita Vedanta, the individual self or jiva realizes its identity with Brahman or the self. Saints like Sri Ramana Maharshi emphasized that when the ego dissolves through self-inquiry or self-surrender, what remains is the self alone. In the Bhagavad Gita, Acting without ego and surrendering to the divine leads to liberation. In Christian mysticism, saints describe dying to self so that God's life shines through them. The parable gently warns the seeker that spiritual life is not only about collecting teachings, reading books, listening to talks, and discussing philosophy are valuable, but they are like the first moth. Real understanding comes through practicing the teachings, remembering God regularly, praying with sincerity, serving others selflessly, letting go of pride and selfishness, remaining faithful through both joy and suffering. The goal is not merely to talk about the flame, but to let the heart be transformed by it. As Rumi expressed the same truth in another way, die before you die. This is not a call to physical death. It is an invitation to let the ego die while living so that love, humility, and awareness of God become the center of one's life. A short introduction to the Sufi saint Fariduddin Attar. He was also known as Attar of Nishapur. He was one of the greatest Sufi mystics and poets of Persia. He is best known for his books, the first one, The Conference of the Birds, the second, The Book of Divine, and the third, Memorial of the Saints. Many of the most famous parables, including the moth and the flame and the conference of the birds, are closely associated with Attar's writings and teachings. His influence on later Sufi masters was immense. Jalaluddin Rumi is said to have admired Attar deeply. A famous saying attributed to Rumi about Attar is, Attar traversed the seven cities of love. We are still at the first street. Attar's works continue to inspire seekers because they combine profound spiritual wisdom with vivid stories and unforgettable symbolism.